Here's your wrestling news for April 28th, 2023, and we're kicking off today with WWE, as on May 27th, a new World Heavyweight Champion will be crowned, and there's no shortage of potential names who could get the gold. Ever since the title was announced on this week's Raw, Seth Rollins has been the favorite to win the championship next month, but is his reign as certain as it seems? When Ringside News asked their sources in WWE about the rumors of Rollins winning, they were told that it will all come down to one man, and that's Vince McMahon. The source stated that the new champion will be the leading candidate that ends up with the title when Vince changes things, implying that McMahon's involvement in the decision is inevitable. While McMahon has no official role with WWE Creative, he still has the power to overrule any ideas, meaning he could handpick the champion if he wants to. We are now 29 days away from the new champion being crowned, and while Seth Rollins may seem like the favorite, who do you want to see become the World Heavyweight Champion in Jeddah? During this week's Spring Breakin' episode of NXT, Indi Hartwell was able to retain the NXT Women's Championship, but her win over Roxanne Perez and Tiffany Stratton did not come easy. During the match, Hartwell suffered a leg injury and had to be taken to the back, and while she was later deemed able to wrestle by the medical team, the update on her situation is not good. During Wrestling Observer Radio, Brian Alvarez shared that Hartwell has been seen at the WWE Performance Center wearing a walking boot, which could indicate a more serious injury. Hartwell's injury occurred when Tiffany Stratton did a splash to the outside onto her opponents, and Hartwell landed awkwardly on her leg when she landed on the floor. Indi Hartwell is still the NXT Women's Champion, at least for the time being, but her future is far from clear, and we'll keep following her condition for further updates. When Hartwell was taken to the back, fans were anxious and waited to see if she would return to the match, and they very nearly saw a new champion be crowned. On Wrestling Observer Live, Brian Alvarez reported that while Hartwell was being tended to, the finish was changed and Stratton was going to win the NXT Women's Championship. This would have been Stratton's first taste of championship gold had Hartwell not been allowed to return, but that title win slipped through the fingers of the blonde superstar. Recently, Stratton said in an interview that she plans to be in NXT for some time to come, as she really wants to hone her skills, despite many thinking she's ready for the main roster. Tiffany Stratton put up a valiant effort this week in her efforts to win her first championship in WWE, and while that didn't happen at Spring Breakin', she did get awfully close. We've mentioned that Indi Hartwell is dealing with a foot injury following this week's Spring Breakin' event, but she isn't the only NXT superstar feeling worse for wear. Grayson Waller and Sol Ruca are also dealing with injuries, with Ruca reportedly out with a torn ACL, and are WWE's own practices at the Performance Center to blame? On Wrestling Observer Radio, Brian Alvarez stated that there have been complaints by some NXT superstars about the style of training they're told to do in the PC, which is different than the training routines the talent come up with themselves. It was said that WWE's training method resembles preparation done for weightlifting competitions, in which individuals set personal records and try to break those records. While this approach is good for powerlifters, many in WWE believe this training doesn't take into account the physical demands of wrestling, where individuals are thrown around, which could result in injuries happening in the ring. Whether WWE will change its stance in the face of 3 prominent NXT names being injured, who's to say? But many wrestlers are far from thrilled with how their training is currently conducted. During the 2021 Women's Royal Rumble, Lisa Marie Varon, aka Victoria, made her return to WWE, marking the former women's champion's first match in a WWE ring since 2009. In the over 2 years since that match, though, Victoria has not been seen anywhere in WWE, and there's a very good reason for that, according to the woman herself. Speaking on the GAW podcast, Varon spoke about being treated very poorly by WWE during her return, and said, "I was treated like when I came back to WWE Backstage, and I was like, you know what? How I got treated by some of the people? I will never treat a human like that, ever. I'm gonna be the welcoming arm, like, hey, welcome to insert promotion name. If they last 2 days, okay, they last 2 days. They're not gonna last very long. But who are they gonna say they want to work with? They're gonna say, I want to work with Lisa Marie." Victoria had 0 eliminations during her 7 minutes in the ring during the Rumble match, and while she had no problem with this, it's what happened backstage that spoiled the show for her. Since then, Victoria has made regular appearances for Impact, where she can often be seen alongside her GAW co-host Mickie James, but don't expect to see her in a WWE ring ever again. Over to AEW, and during a recent segment, Rush was gifted a briefcase full of cash as a thank you from AEW World Champion MJF for trying to eliminate Bryan Danielson. In wrestling, the trope of a wrestler being paid off or coming into some shocking amount of money is nothing new, but some fans in Mexico took what they were seeing a bit too seriously. Taking to Twitter, Jose the Assistant let fans know that some fans were looking for Rush in Mexico because they wanted to steal his briefcase loaded with cash. When one fan called out Jose saying he is lying and making Mexicans look bad, the Assistant fired back, pointing out that he himself is Mexican and reiterating that the story is entirely true. Thankfully, it seems those people didn't find Rush and demand the money he used in that backstage segment, though we doubt that real money was used for the segment, and if it was, we seriously doubt Tony Khan would have let Rush keep the cash. Earlier this week, we reported on Eric Bischoff, who was left close to dying twice recently due to a serious health scare in his intestines. Bischoff, who is hypoglycemic, added too many psyllium husks to his diet, which shredded his intestines and nearly caused him to die of internal bleeding, but Eazy-E has now given a much more positive update. When a fan tweeted that they're glad Bischoff is okay now and sent their love from Manchester, England, this got a response from the Hall of Famer, who said he's back and better than ever. Fans may notice that Bischoff's comment is a direct quote from his WWE theme song, and we're glad to hear that he's doing very well after nearly losing his life twice earlier this year. It was just over 3 months ago that Mercedes Mone debuted for New Japan Pro Wrestling, and within a month of her arrival, the ex-Sasha Banks had become the IWGP Women's Champion. This week, it was reported that Mone had signed a contract extension with New Japan, which will keep her appearing throughout the month of May, but we now know more about her new deal. Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful reports that Mone has enjoyed her time in Japan, and her relationship with the promotion is positive, but said that she's not anchored to anything long-term with the company. Mone has reportedly been very well received within New Japan, and there has been no examples of her thinking she's above anyone in the company, despite her success in WWE and in the media. If Mone opts to leave New Japan, then we expect the door would be open for her in AEW, while WWE may be far less willing to get her a job back, especially now with Vince McMahon back in charge. Ultimately, only Mercedes Mone knows what she's planning to do in the future and where she'll be wrestling by the end of this year, but what do you think she should do next? Sound off in the comments. Mercedes Mone is a former Raw, SmackDown, and NXT Women's Champion, as well as a WWE Women's Tag Team Champion and IWGP Women's Champion, and she's now looking to add more gold to her collection. Today, New Japan confirmed on their website that Mone will wrestle at the NJPW Strong Resurgence event on May 21st and will be part of a 4-woman tournament to crown the first ever New Japan Strong Women's Champion. Mone, representing New Japan, will face CMLL Stephanie Vacour in the semifinals, and the winner will face the winner of the other semifinals match between Stardom's Momo Kogo and AEW's Willow Nightingale. If Mone is to become the first ever NJPW Strong Women's Champion, it would certainly suggest that she'll be sticking with the promotion for the foreseeable future, but we'll just have to see who wins the gold at Resurgence next month. It was back in November of last year that Preston Vance, aka Number 10, turned on the Dark Order, betraying the faction and joining Rush and Jose the Assistant as the newest member of La Facción Ingobernable. Not only did he turn heel, but Vance also unmasked himself, and that moment couldn't come too soon for the former Dark Order member. Speaking on AEW Unrestricted, Vance admitted that he never liked wearing a mask and had never done so before AEW, and said that wearing a mask makes it very difficult to show enthusiasm via facial reactions when wrestling. Vance went on to say that Chris Jericho was a big influence in his change of character, but it was Andrade who pulled him aside one day and said that he was going to pitch the idea of the heel turn to Tony Khan. Preston Vance has been a regular on AEW Rampage and AEW Dark since turning heel, and we'll have to see what's next for the former 10 after leaving the Dark Order behind. And we're ending today with SmackDown, as tonight's show will be night 1 of the draft, and though we don't know the fates of the superstars just yet, one name fans can expect to see is Teddy Long. PW Insider reports that the Hall of Famer and longtime SmackDown GM will be on tonight's episode of The Blue Show, but there's no word on exactly what he'll be doing during the show in Corpus Christi, Texas. Long is, of course, no stranger to WWE drafts, as he saw plenty of superstars come and go during his time as SmackDown GM, and expect the fun-loving legend to have a blast and perhaps announce a tag team match or two during tonight's historic episode of SmackDown.